Then?
Yes, sorry, I couldn't get in. I didn't know what was
Oh,
going
that's my
on.
bad. I
So,
didn't see you on the list.
okay, I was like, what's going on? Okay.
All right. Well, yeah, there's like 30 something people waiting, so we
Oh,
can
blimey.
let
Let's
them
get
in and get
started.
started.
All right.
All right, I'm gonna hit admit,
Mm.
and then we can give it just a minute. I'll let you know when it looks clear.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like we have everyone in from the waiting room, and we can go ahead and get started.
All right. Great. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for returning to join us this week. We appreciate you being flexible on the hours and the time. So I hope you found the last session to be quite productive. We did, and have updated our FAQs to reflect that. And thank you for sending in your questions. If you're not familiar, it's your first time. These are our BEAD grantee office hours. We're going to be doing about 10 of these over the next couple of months to keep supporting you in your quest to get your grant agreements all signed and sealed. I've got my colleagues here with me today. So we'd like to just get started, and the idea I think is to cover a little bit of a different theme each week, and then take that opportunity to get questions from you and answer those. Can we do the next slide? So yeah, as I mentioned, this is the meeting format, so we'll do updates. We'll get a Q&A out to you. All of this is being recorded, so you'll be able to access it on our website. All the remaining sessions will begin at 2 p.m. on Thursdays from now on. We'll cover certain requirements in each of these and then open it up to a Q&A. So if you have questions, that's fantastic. We love them. Just put them into the chat and we'll get through them at the end of the session, just so we have time to share with you our what we're trying to get through, and then we'll open it up for other questions as we go forward. Again, come with questions. We're excited to answer those, and if we can't answer them, we'll come back to you as soon as we can. So, yeah, next session, next slide. Thank you. So we don't have any updates on here, but I do want to, we didn't add the FAQs to this, but you can access them on our website. Our colleague Kristen Perry has done a great job of lining them up by the date. So anytime the questions come in, we'll make sure there's an update that says when it was done, and then that'll tackle the particular questions that we have to deal with at that time. So keep checking our website for updates on that.
And Brian, do you mind
Yeah,
if I hop in and give just a
please.
couple of updates on questions that we didn't have the answers for in the last meeting? Can we go back one slide real quick? Yeah. So we thank you all for the questions that you asked during last session. They were fantastic, like Brian said. And we encourage you to keep throwing questions in the chat because we love them and we will try to get to them. We'll probably take them all at the end, but as you think of them, definitely put them in the chat and we'll keep an eye on them and get to them. So we had a couple of really great pieces of feedback over the last week that we wanted to either clarify or share with you. You can find more details, like Brian said, in the facts on our website. But one of the questions that you all had brought up was this tension between the feds saying that grantees can't have any profit, but that some of your customer drops, which are included in your budgets, are you going to need to sort of keep your grant open for a really long time? Or what happens if those customer drops happen outside of the period of performance? And so we wanted to come back to you with a little bit more clarity around this. So BEAD projects are fixed amount subawards, and they're very traditional fixed amount subawards. That was sort of that conversation about milestones before. Um, and so the state is not going to expect grantees to repay funds that have not been expended at the end of a completed project. So, for example, for drops for customers who have not yet subscribed. And the reason for this is that the feds say that when required activities, which is, of course, subscribing customers and putting drops in, um, it, if if you have done all of the activities that are required of the grant, and they were completed in accordance with the terms and conditions, the unexpended funds, so the extra funds, are not considered profit. The feds don't consider those unexpended funds profit. So when you're thinking about the way that those milestones will be paid, that last payment will be for the remainder of your total grant amount, regardless of whether or not you've spent that money on drops yet or not. So just wanted to do a little bit of clarification on that. I'm happy to talk more about it. If that is clear as mud, drop questions in the chat. We can talk more at the end of the presentation. Also wanted to mention, because it was probably a little bit confusing for those of you that have started going through the onboarding guide, there is there's a form, a certification form called Protecting BEAD from Defaults. And just wanted to mention that this is not a state requirement and this is not state language. This is federally mandated language that we have to pass on to you in the exact format in which the feds sent it to us. And so, unfortunately, we won't be able to entertain requests for changes to that language. That's exactly what the feds are asking for you all to sign and for us to send those certifications to them. Thank you for those of you who have sent us information on your thoughts around milestone payments. We're getting some fantastic feedback. Love to talk more about it at the end of this presentation if we have a little bit of time. We're getting wonderful feedback, things like, what happens if we don't finish a milestone and we have a building moratorium? Do we have to hold those costs then for another year? And what does that look like for cash flow? So the more information, the more feedback we get from you, the better. We're thrilled to have it. So please, we encourage you to think about milestones. What would work for you? What would work for your size agency or your particular operating mechanism, and let us know. So thank you for that. We want more. And then there was a little bit of confusion, I think, around the certified network design and the way that it ties in to the NEPA review. And we just wanted to clarify here. And of course, we'll be talking about the certified network design later today, and hopefully this will clear things up. But the NEPA review is separate from the requirement for the certified network design. So we believe and we hope that we've structured the certified network design in a way that once you've got the certified network design complete, it will help you with your NEPA review. But the NEPA review is actually an environmental consultant that you all hire that will look at your design and will help you figure out what kind of impacts, environmental or historic preservation impacts that you will have based on the design you've created. So it's not the same thing. They're related, but it's not the same thing. So we will have in a couple of weeks a session on NEPA. We're trying to get through the things you have to do just to get your money first, and then we'll build in the things that you have to do after you have your money second in terms of priority. But we will have some more information for you on NEPA and what that looks like and guidelines. Next slide. So want to take some time to really dive in to what we're requesting from you around the certified network design. So as a reminder, there are a number of items that you will need to upload to Salesforce. This is one of those items. You'll submit to us the certified network design package. And Michael will talk about some of the things in the actual diagram in just a minute, but I just wanted to briefly give you an overview of what the documents that you'll be sending to us are and a little bit of clarification about it. You also just wanted to sort of acknowledge that there's some confusion around the timing of this. And to be really transparent, that CBO does not love the required timing of this, but unfortunately, it's not something that we have any control over. So the feds require this while you are still a prospective subgrantee, not a grantee, right? So once you sign your agreement, you become a grantee. We have to get it before then. We have to get it before we sign the agreement with you. And so it's unfortunate. We agree with you that this makes a lot more sense to be after the fact, but this is required prior to the state being able to execute a grant agreement with you. So what are we looking for? We're looking for a package. This package is based on the requirements of the feds. Again, these items are not things that that we've sort of set up. These are the items that the feds have set up and said have to be included in the certified network design. So the certified professional engineer needs to look at and certify a couple of things. So they're going to need to look at the design narrative and the network diagram. They also need to look at your timeline and your milestones and your project costs. And then then you also submit, they will sign and certify their certification form. So the certification, so that's going to be sort of one packet. The PE certification statement really says that the certified engineer is saying, yes, this build out and initiation can happen within a maximum of 4 years. Your timeline should actually show what you've agreed to in your application, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And that it is going to be able to deliver as designed, the way that you're submitting this, as designed, it can deliver the broadband service, meeting all of the performance requirements in the served locations that you've identified within those certified documents. We'll talk about each of those things in a little bit. What the feds have backed off on a little bit is that they will allow the capital investment schedule to not be certified by the professional engineer. So the things that do need to be certified are on the far left of the screen, but not the capital investment schedule. Next slide. What we've tried to do in the next couple of slides is to take each of these documents that will need to be included in the package and break them down a little bit. You have significantly more documentation in the uh, in the onboarding build out. Brian, I see your hand. You're welcome to hop off. Generally, we want to kind of try and keep questions till the end, but let us know what do you have?
That's fine. We can talk about. I just wasn't sure what you wanted to do. We can talk about at the end. That's fine. Totally fine.
Okay, that'd be great. But definitely put a pin in it or throw it in the chat because we don't want to lose it. So in the design narrative, we have laid out in the onboarding guide, we've laid out the items that we'd like to see in the design narrative. Really, it's sort of 5 items. And we would expect this to be maybe a one pager, right? Maybe less. We are anticipating, so we would like to see the network. Wouldn't like to see. We're asking you to send in the assumptions that you're using to develop your network. So, for example, the expected throughput, the number of subscribers you're anticipating on your network. So, some of those baseline assumptions. What are the requirements of your system that you're building to? So, what are your speeds? What's your latency capacity? What kind of redundancy do you have? A description of your network architecture. So, what kind of power backup capability do you have? What kind of technology choices have you had? If you're a fixed wireless provider, that would look like a frequency band or channel width. Again, all of the individual details are much more fully fleshed out within the onboarding guide. We're also requesting a narrative of your deployment plan. So do you have any deployment considerations? Are you doing a phase plan? Are you doing sort of the eastern section first and the western section second? And if so, why? So that's what would be included in your deployment plan section, and then future scalability. So what kind of updates, if you're will you need to reach a gig symmetrical within 10 years? Or if you have designed your system as 1 gig symmetrical, you would note that that future scalability. Next slide. I will hand the layers over this slide over to Michael.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Um, Also, just a little bit further information around the format of the layers of the architecture diagram. But by me, all means, please reference the documentation because it has a lot more details and gives a lot more clarification than probably what I'm going to do it justice today. Um, but what is going to be required in the network architecture diagram is we're going to look at it in electronic format in one of these formats, either an Esri shapefile, GDB, or a KMZ, KML file. And it's going to have multiple layers. There's a points layer, required points layer. That's where you're going to identify your serviceable locations, backhaul connection points, anything that you would consider as a point on the network. We'll want to see that on that layer. And then the next layer, the required path layers, this is where you're going to start building the connections between those points. Show us how that, how you're distinguishing redundancy, resiliency. We'll be looking for the fiber paths, and we're looking for attributes on that to also include whether it's aerial or underground, pole owners, right-of-way owner, cable density, things like that, available capacity. And if it's new or existing routes. We'd like to know that because that helps us understand whenever we look at the diagram, what's there and what is intended to build. And then it helps us with the timeframes as well. We all know that it takes longer to build in some areas than others. So mileage may not be specifically the end all be all of how long it's going to take to build because of the different attributes or different contrib contributing factors, that is. And then on the required polygon layer, this is where we're looking for nodal level polygons showing that, the area served, including your OLTs, power supplies. On a fixed wireless, we'd be looking for a coverage map polygon, and we're looking for that per tower and per sector. So if you've got multiple sectors and you're dividing it out, we'd like to see how that coverage looks. I know a lot of times whenever we see fixed wireless, we see just like what's in this picture, a tower with a big circle around it. Well, we know if you're using sectors, there's going to be overlaps and there's going to be power bands that are kind of spikes out that you'll be able to cover. That's what we're really looking for is the true expected coverage for those sectors. I know everybody likes to draw pretty little circles and have them overlap, but that's not the way RF really does traverse our territory anyway, not with all the mountains and things that we have. So just keep that in mind as you're putting these together. And what we should be able to do is we should be able to look at the whole package together and then just start peeling back layers and get down to the point level and see the points and then lay it back on top and see how you put it together and what the entire network scope looks like. So that's what we'll be looking for in that package. If you'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So as Ali mentioned earlier, we have a 4-year time frame from the time that an agreement is signed till the funds have to be expended. But that doesn't mean a 4-year time frame for the project. What we're looking for there is, as we discussed in our review meetings, if you put in your project application that you could do this in 36 months, that's what your timeline should indicate. But just know we have up to 4 years for the funds to be expended. After that, we have to give the funds back to the feds. So we want to definitely build these networks in under 4 years and get these closed out so that we expend all of the funds and not give any of this back. We want to deploy this all in Colorado. This is just really and truly just a 4-year build out, but we're looking for true build outs. If it's going to take you 4 years, then tell us it's going to take you 4 years. You've already told us that in your application. Let's make sure that your schedule shows that. And I will take a little caveat here. I appreciate all of the information that you guys have been providing back after our reviews. It's been very helpful. We have had probably the least amount of back and forth that I've ever seen on any communication. So I want to just give my appreciation for how well you guys are doing and working with us. It's truly feeling like a partnership on this, and I really appreciate it. If you could go ahead and go to the next slide. So part of the project cost and capital investment schedule, what does that look like and what is certified by the PE and what's not? So the project cost, it's a detailed one-time cost to build this proposed network. It's basically your budget that you've proposed to us in your application that we have put into the grant portal. We have verified it with you and we have kind of weeded out and reformed it to be more accurate to what was after the curing process. And this includes your grant funds, matching funds, and it has to be looked at by the engineer and validated that it is financially accurate and costs are reasonable. We've already done this once, but we definitely want a professional engineer to go over this and recertify or certify it that our review of it and everything is accurate and correct. For a capital investment schedule, again, no PE certification required on this. This is where you detailed the timeline and the spending that is projected to occur during that timeline, how it pans out in terms of the phases or the milestones, whatever we end up on. I'm still back and forth on phases versus milestones, but we definitely want your input. We're looking forward to all the input that you can provide. I know several of you have spoke to me in meetings that we've had. In writing would be great if we could get that because then we can evaluate all of the input instead of my Texas nomenclatures being added to it. So just please keep that information coming in and help us make this the best program possible.
A couple of things, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for both the project costs, right, so that and the timeline and the capital investment schedule, many of these things are in the documentation that you have already submitted to Michael. The state of Colorado will accept, if as long as there's not been any back and forth, we would want it to be consistent with what has ended up in Salesforce. You can resubmit that same paperwork. Send it through your professional engineer, make sure that they are okay with it, and they're effectively signing off and saying, yes, this is accurate, this is reasonable to be able to get this job done, right? But you can use that document that you've already been working on, and we will accept that as your project cost, your capital investment schedule, and your timeline and milestones. So it's no problem. If you want to do it a different way, that's absolutely no problem. But just know that if you'd like to reuse and repurpose, we're
Yes.
happy to accept that.
Yes, you've already put a lot of effort
We've
into
already done
this
it.
already,
That's great.
and we provided it in a format that could be used in that way. And again, it's been very good at working with everyone. It has gone much smoother than we anticipated. That's for sure.
Next slide. So wanted to talk a little bit about what you'll be seeing. We will begin starting probably within the next week or so, right, Michael?
Yes.
Creating a provisional award for you within the Salesforce portal. And so there's some work that Michael and their team are going to be doing on the back end, and then you'll start seeing notifications from Salesforce. Keep an eye out for them so that you can review the information that is in there and then accept your provisional award.
Yes.
It'll take a
Yes.
couple more days, but once you do that, after you do that, after about a week, you'll be able to see your what will look like an award. You won't have award documentation, of course, but you'll see an award within Salesforce, and you will be able to start uploading some of your documentation that's required as part of that onboarding guide. So you can upload your network design. You can upload your certificates of insurance if you have those already from your surety companies. You'll be able to just have a place to put all that stuff. So know that that's coming. Keep an eye on your email. If you have any questions, certainly reach out to us. Anything I'm missing there, Michael?
No, I was just going to say that you will get an email notification for each grant application. Whenever we want you to look at it and review it one last time to accept the award, you will get an email for each one And it should have, at that point, you should be able to go into your portal and look under the award or under the application. And when you go into that application, it's going to ask you to accept yes or no. And once you do that, it does kick off a process on the back end that it duplicates and creates a grant agreement record that then we track the agreement for the life of the contract.
Next slide. And just as a brief reminder, these are the things that are going to need to be uploaded there. So the certification of no additional public funding, the surety letter, whether you have a letter of credit or your payment, your performance bond and labor materials bond, your cybersecurity and supply chain risk management certifications, your certificates of insurance, and your financial management questionnaire, in addition to the network design that we talked about today. We will be having each of these will be the focus of an office hours over the next couple of weeks. So if you don't know what your requirements are, don't worry. We'll talk a little bit more about it. But at this point, maybe you just want to pause and take an opportunity to answer either any questions in the chat, or y'all just hop off of mute and ask questions. Happy to answer them. So next slide. So in the chat, we have a question from Cole. If a company is unwilling to sign a grant agreement or unable to meet the requirements of the BEAD program, so their preliminary awarded locations go unserved, will ISPs be able to bid on those locations, and what happens? We do not. This is a great question, Cole, and we would love to know. We do not have answers from NTIA around this yet. We don't know what process they're going to require from us, whether or not that's going to be a competitive process or a selection process, or what that's going to look like. So when we know more, we will tell you more. Of course, we hope that this does not happen. We hope that you all accept your awards, and we're really looking forward to partnering with you to serve Colorado. Cynthia asked, is the architectural detail required in the onboarding guide? Yes. Well, I think what you're asking is there more information on the design, the architectural design in the onboarding guide? And yes, that's where you would want to go to take a look at for additional information. Cynthia, if I am misunderstanding your question, hop off and let me know. David, since there is a PE requirement in the network design packet, can these costs be submitted for reimbursement after the contract is signed, or are you expected to cover all of the costs on this stage in engineering? So love this question. You could not have fed me a better question, David. So this is the difference between a reimbursement-based grant and a fixed amount award grant. So in fixed amount award, we have these milestones that we pay based on the total cost of your grant, like what you told us it's going to cost us, what it will cost to build out the system. And so you will want to retain this. We are waiting on we've asked NTIA to give us some really clear approvals for these costs, but regardless, we have a first 10% milestone on the NEPA review, and you get paid that 10% for meeting that milestone, not necessarily the reimbursement for the costs that go into that milestone, if that makes sense. So you wouldn't submit those costs to us for reimbursement at all. You would simply say, we have completed this milestone and we want to be paid for this milestone now. Again, the distinction matters, but it's a little gray. So, David, hop off mute and let me know if that's not clear.
Yeah, that's
Michael.
I guess
That makes sense.
yeah, I just followed up on there that and maybe I missed that there was a change on it because I thought it was going to be reimbursement based, the same as CPF. And so you're saying
No.
milestone based.
Yes. And so, if you haven't had a chance to take a look at the milestones, we'll actually be sending them out via email in the next week or so, and asking for additional feedback on them. we will be doing really a milestone-based process that you will not, if you don't spend all your money at the end of the grant, you get the total amount of the grant. But also, upon completion of each milestone, you'll be paid a certain amount. And so we want to make sure those milestones that we're really getting those milestones right. And so we've talked about that a little bit in the last one, but are really soliciting feedback from you all around what you think are the right milestones, and how do we keep your cash flow going, and how do we tie them to things that are both incremental but also not causing you a lot of heartburn or administrative work.
Yeah.
Is there a standard template for the PE certification statement? Yes, that is in the onboarding guide. So there's a link in there in the onboarding guide to the certification statement. For new routes, we would not necessarily have the cable density split owner prior to contract execution. Are all fields required for the new routes? Michael, I will punt that to the technical expert.
On the new routes, you're going to give us, since you're going to be building those out, you would know the right of way if you're using public right of way or if you're using private right of way. That's what we would be looking for. And then what we would look for is the cable density that you plan to build out. So in other words, if you're building out a 50-mile network and 25 miles of that is new, we would be looking for what you plan to install on the new route. Put that in there as the attributes. The existing routes, you should be able to get the attributes in terms of what's already there. But yes, we're looking for what your future plans are for that new route.
And is there an update on the login issues that some of you have been experiencing? I don't think we have an update on that. Or do we? Michael's nodding.
Yes, we do.
Michael is nodding.
Yes,
We
we
have an
do.
update. Yes.
Yes. We think we found the primary culprit. What we found is that the login timeframes were defaulted to 60 days to default to expire. And if that happened and you tried to reset your password afterwards, you weren't an active user anymore. We had to reactivate you and reset the password. So we've extended that to 180 days because during the BEAD program, there's an expectation that we're getting monthly reports. And then there's an expectation that at least every 6 months we're getting a financial report. So we think that will cover us. But if you continue to have issues, let me know and we will troubleshoot your individual user items.
And David, I think we talked about this, but yes, payments will be made on milestones, not reimbursed for cost. So you will not be needing to send in to us all of your receipts. You will need to retain them. And just, it's probably a good time to say this now for those of you, particularly for those of you who maybe worked with us on CPF or SLFRF. This is different, so you don't have to send them into us, but you do need to retain them. And that's really in the case that, and we believe it will never happen, but if it were to happen, if you were to default, the feds have the ability to come in and look at your expenses, and then you would potentially only get paid for expenses incurred, or they would disallow costs. So as a reminder, it is not the Fed's responsibility to prove to you that you did not pay for something. It is the grantee's responsibility to prove that you did pay for something and that it was appropriately used. And so you will need to retain that documentation in your accounting records, but you don't need to send it to us. We will be able to pay you based on the completion of a milestone. And yep.
I would like to add also,
Yeah.
keep in mind if you're using inventory material, you would want to have some type of process that you have documentation that you took it out of inventory and the date that it was taken out of inventory to be put into service. That would be your documentation that the feds would be interested in addition to when you have the invoice that you purchased it, because you may purchase material a year ahead of time and then not use it until the next year. You want to have that documentation of when it was stored and that you took it out of storage and put it into service.
And potentially that you returned inventory if you didn't use it. Mark, are the slides from last week the best source for the current milestones we're looking at now? Yeah, I mean, I think those are probably the best slides for you to provide feedback on. It's where our thinking was initially. We've already started having internal conversations, if I'm being really transparent, about ways that we may adjust those milestones based on feedback that we're getting from you all. But we don't have anything necessarily updated. We're really hoping to gather as much feedback as we can and your thoughts around where could milestones potentially create hardship in particular, and where are there sort of easy to provide documentation that you have completed a milestone. So what does that look like? So we'd love feedback on that. And David, you asked certified payrolls. We do not in Colorado require certified payrolls. So BEAD is not subject to Davis-Bacon Wage Act. It is not subject to that. So we will not be requiring certified payrolls. So keep your own, they can keep their own payroll documentation in the event of a federal audit.
And I think that's a good point, Ellie. These are some of the trade-offs by the direction that we're going with milestone payment and everything that we benefit from, that we don't have some of these requirements that we used to have, right?
Exactly. So happy to take more questions, happy to talk more, to entertain your thoughts on milestones if you'd like. Yeah, Craig.
Hello.
Hey.
Let me see if there's a video thing. A few questions. In the curriculum, the required curriculum, is there a way to disable ads with your YouTube account? I mean, I love pre-roll ads and monetizing for the state of Colorado, but depending on the browser and the device, you get pre-roll ads. And we're not really allowed to use ad blockers and that sort of thing. So like the FCC's YouTube account, they have special dispensation to not have ads. And if there's a way for Colorado to not have ads,
thank you.
You will save me 30 seconds of my life for each video.
That sounds great. I will, we'll look into it. I have no idea. I didn't even realize that you did. So thanks for the heads up. Well,
I don't know if you need to put that in the frequently asked questions. Maybe it's just a one-time asked question, but
right. Yeah. Send it up the food chain kind of question. Perfect.
yeah, because maybe I'm the only one who's sensitive to advertising. Michael, do you have a standardized attribute table for your GIS layers for the path metadata that was requested, or should we just throw it all in there in some sort of random text and you deal with it? Or are you trying to align them on one single layer later?
Why do you ask such good questions?
I know that's a good one. Office hours are good.
Well, I would think you'd want to prescribe the fields, and then if it's empty, leave it empty. But then when you create your ArcGIS map, you have it all populated the same.
Yeah, I would take a look at the document. I think we went into that depth of what we expected to be attributes and what we expected where and when. But if that doesn't answer your question, I'll find somebody that can. Because I can tell you, we definitely want as much information as possible to be able to validate these and be able to review them and validate them.
Yeah, Craig, let us take it back and we'll get you an answer.
Yeah,
it'd be a template on your part. So
right.
If you had a template and then everyone just uses those same.
Yeah, great. Thank you. It was a great suggestion.
Maybe a harder one. Where can this certified network design differ from our most recent proposal without prior approval? As life evolves and you think about things, BEAD has gone on for a while now and life has changed. So by the time we get through to all this, things may come up. And when you think about what we're going to do versus what we said we would do? You know, what's okay to change without prior approval?
You want me to take that one, Michael? I have some thoughts, although
I'm
Michael has
thinking
better
on it.
thoughts.
I'm thinking on it. Can't you see the smoke coming out of my head? I'm thinking right now. Um,
So,
yeah, is it what when you say changes, like significant changes, like 100 miles more fiber or less fiber? Is that what you're talking about, change, or are you talking about minor changes that you're going to use a different cabinet or a different, I don't know, different connector, something like that?
You know, it can be the spectrum.
Okay,
It can span from uh, saying we're going to be 100% underground to a ditch company requiring us to be overhead,
okay,
and all the way up to changing technology. And
yeah.
you know,
If
any of that stuff. It's more of a generic question about what you can change without triggering
yeah,
raised eyebrows.
yeah. So technology, big one. You don't want to change technology. So if you proposed uh, XGS PON and you're going to change it to something significantly different or something different than that, we wouldn't want to see that change because we've reported this application to the feds already. So we want to stick as close to the original. We do know that a ditch company can say go aerial, don't go underground. That's not going to be the major concern. It's going to be you went from underground fiber to wireless overhead and then back up to underground fiber. That probably would not fly because you've changed technologies in the middle, Craig.
can I
Yeah. Yeah.
come at
You
this
can throw me
at
a
a slightly
lifeline.
different.
You can throw me a
Lem-
lifeline.
No, 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 no. Let me come at this a little bit of a different way. So,
Okay.
Craig, when we evaluated your applications, we awarded you based on the information that was in your application. And so, generally speaking, so there's maybe kind of two questions here. One is what can be changed without prior approval? Most things need to be run by the state, right? Like if it's deviating from your application, likely you need to notify us about it and not change it without notification. That does not mean it's automatically a no. It's probably in most cases a yes, right? Because you've got boots on the ground, you're making decisions based on what you're seeing in the field, and that's probably fine. But the changes without notification get a little bit sticky. So I would say that. So one is this question of like notification versus approval. Right? The second is there are items that we promise to NTIA that can't be changed, not just from our perspective, but it can't be changed without NTIA approval. And so those would be incredibly difficult to change. So things like numbers of locations, technology used, the description of your project, those kinds of things get a lot more difficult for us. And I also wanted to add that this certified professional engineering, these package is the first step in many steps of your project iteration that will eventually culminate, in final as-built drawings in the very, very end, right? And we recognize that those changes are going to be happening over time. What we don't want to happen from the state's perspective is that we end up with a project that doesn't look anything like what we approved in the application because it was a competitive process, right? And you won, you beat someone based on the design that you sent us the first time. So there's like maybe three parts of that. One, please notify. If you're making a change, it's probably a perfectly reasonable change. Just let us know, and we can let you know what we would need to do. The second is there are some items that will be very much more difficult to change than others. And so if you let us know what you're thinking about, we'll let you know how hard it's going to be for us to get that change through. And then the third is just that we recognize that there's going to be multiple steps and multiple changes along the way. I mean, NEPA is a great example, right? If you need to move just 2 miles to the west to avoid an entire wetland, but it cost, you have to change some processes for that. That may be very reasonable. And that change is just a result of your NEPA review. So, and we anticipate that happening. We know that may happen. We anticipate that.
Yeah,
Did
I think
that?
maybe
Is
if
that
you
no?
can expand on that in FAQ or put that in writing, it's helpful when we go before a PE because they look at things differently and they may ask for some changes
Totally.
here or there. And then differentiate between the statute-driven side of it, and meaning what is required for your reporting to NTIA and FBOs, but also how the award criteria factors in with the latest round where lowest price wins, pejoratively. But when you look at that being the main criteria, and there was no rubric for technology, there was no rubric for speed, and those may have been ancillary considerations, but as long as you provide the lowest cost for the level of service, does anything else matter? So if you could provide some clarity on that in FAQs, then that helps us when we meet with PEs.
You bet. You bet. And we can also provide, I think one of the other things it sounds like you're asking for is some clarification for PEs, at least in a fax document, that we understand that they are certifying to this design in this moment right now, and recognizing that it may change over time based on field conditions, and that we're not going to hold them to the fact that it changes over time. We
Okay.
can we can try and get something a little more clear to comfort the professional, the certified professional engineers, for sure.
And one more. Do the offices or people called out in the checklist know that we're coming? For example, CDOT, do they know that they're
Oh,
going to
they
be
do know you're coming.
that,
They do
that
know
they're
you're
going to be
coming.
a
In fact,
sale?
they asked for the email. Yeah.
Yes.
So it won't be a surprise to them.
No.
All
No.
right.
No, and they'll be very grateful. One of the things that we've been really grateful to CDOT for is doing their best to resource to be able to help you all through this process. So they're going to be really pleased to be able to start planning some of their resourcing based on your contacts.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's it for me.
David, I was typing this, but I have an opportunity here maybe. If you go to that webpage that you can see the onboarding guidelines, if you go down to recordings and slides and look at the kickoff session 115 BEAD Provisional Award office hour slides, that's where we kind of identified the milestones that as we know them right now. More information will be distributed, as Ali said, but that's for you. You could take a look there and get a kind of a first glimpse of what kind of milestones we're talking about.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. I had somebody else who reviewed that from our end and did not relay that aspect, so I am looking at that now. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
No
Yep.
worries.
No problem. And definitely want to you provide feedback on how that looks for you, and we can take that in consideration.
We also encourage you to look at it best case scenario, but also look at it worst case scenario. So
Yep.
if something were to happen on your project untoward, right, you don't get your NEPA approval, you don't get a permit that you expect. What would that do to your cash flow based on those milestones? Oh, thanks, Jed. Jed also just dropped them in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, that is on slide 4 of that presentation.
Hey, Laura.
Awesome. I just found it. Thanks for posting that, Jed.
Sure. And Laura, it says when you say we'll take feedback into consideration, does it mean it could be adjusted? Yeah, it does mean it could be adjusted. That's exactly what it means. We are very interested. We don't want to have unintentional consequences. And so we really are truly soliciting feedback. We may not be able to make all changes. So there are some, give a great example. The state of Colorado has proposed to NTIA that once you submit your NEPA evaluations, that we would be able to pay, and that you don't have to wait for the first payment until your NEPA reviews are complete. And unfortunately, at this point, that's not allowed. We can only pay after your NEPA is actually approved. That's the first payment we're able to make. And so But if you can bring things like that to us, we may not be able to change them, but we will try. We'll do our best to incorporate feedback and make these milestones really work for as many agencies as we can. You bet. Other thoughts? Judd, did you have anything that we're missing?
No, I don't think so. That was a good clarification right there at the end is the way we currently read the NTIA guidance is we can't make any payments until you satisfy NEPA. So yet there are some pre-NEPA things you can be doing. You can be doing engineering, you can be incurring costs, but we can't pay you for those until NEPA passes. And then you could theoretically then basically pass milestone number one and milestone number two simultaneously, basically. Because if you've done all your engineering and permitting, which you're allowed to do before you get NEPA, then you'd kind of submit for milestone one and milestone two. But we're trying to get guidance on that from NTIA. We're hoping maybe some of those your permitting and engineering and things that you're allowed to do can actually be paid also ahead of NEPA.
Right.
Because we're very cognizant of, cash flow. And it's a big issue.
How would that work? Like, for example, waiting on a CDOT permit. If we have every permit except like one permit that we might not get for a year, because technically U.S. Forest Service has 270 days to respond, does that mean that we can't say milestone two is complete because we have one permit that is gonna take forever?
Yeah, those are the conversations we really want to have, David. We've been talking about that internally as well. Even if it wasn't a external agency's fault, but maybe you want to stage your permitting. So maybe permits isn't the right stage two, right? Maybe a permitting plan is the right stage two, rather than milestone two, rather than having the permits themselves. So we're really interested in ISP feedback around, recognizing that obviously we need to be able to be showing progress and we need to be able to evaluate the progress, and make sure that projects continue to move forward. What are those milestones? What do reasonable milestones look like? So
Okay.
yeah,
Yep.
those questions are exactly what we're looking for, David.
Permit planning makes sense, but like for example, when we did work in El Paso County, the permits are good for 30 days. So if I file that in May, but we're not going to be there for a year, well, I got the permits, so I can say milestone two is completed, but I'm gonna have to
Right.
read that permit is kind of a complete waste at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you incur costs twice because you have
Right.
to submit the permit again. That's not what the intent is. We're trying to get flexibility there to where it's more of a defined plan and we understand what that plan looks like, how you're going to permit, how you're going to effectively manage your project. That's why we have the deliverables and things like that. That was an attempt to get a better view and have some concrete visibility to better view of progress than what we have today in our current grant agreements that we're managing, David.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm also curious on the percentage completion. Like, are we talking mainline, or if all the
Yeah.
conduits there, but none of the fibers pulled and spliced, it's kind of a what
Uh,
consider.
we definitely answered that in our FAQ from last time, David, but
I've got it up. So sorry.
it's basically if you can serve that location under the FCC definition of within the request of service within 10 days of requesting service or 7 days, then that's considered passed and that's what would be considered part of the completed project or measured as the completed project.
Okay, then one piece of feedback on that is like, for example, one of our CPF projects, we're waiting on CDOT for well over 6 months to light the dark fiber that we've got a lease on.
Mhm.
So technically, from the FCC definition of can I light them in 10 days? Well, I can't. But there's nothing else I can do to get them online because we've put the handhole, we've spliced it, we've ran it. So just as a caveat, what counts as an actual
Mhm.
completed passing?
So
That would not.
as your grant manager, I would say I couldn't, but bring that to me and I'm going to take it to Allie and Judd and see how we can, if we can, and we'll fight for trying to get you paid. But that would be an example of where you wouldn't be able to say it could be let. Yes, David.
Okay, perfect. That's kind of what I thought. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Maybe encourage you guys to add like a 25% milestone in there. Just when we're talking a 4-year project, if I've got to carry the balance for 2 years because they haven't finished, that's a little bit long, doable. But if you guys added a 25% milestone, that may help in that regard, especially if we've
Okay.
got vendors that are willing to hold it, but then they're like, we're only at 40% and we're stuck here.
Mhm.
Yeah. Great. Thanks. Thanks, David. And one of the things we may be able to consider as well is can we create sort of an external policy around what would validation or verification of progress look like to be able to do interim payments so that you could
Mhm.
request an interim payment maybe in between two milestones, right? Um, to the point that someone had sent in if you're getting ready to go into the winter season, you know you've got a building moratorium. How do we verify progress and put a percentage to that so that then we're able to pay for progress completed or something? So yeah. And David, just or and for the rest of the group, um, the more you can send us challenges that you anticipate, so something like CDOT not being able to light or not lighting the dark fiber that you're waiting for, um, the more we know about those, that's really helpful for us now in our planning phase because as we start working with um, our statewide counterparts or permitting other permitting entities, it's really nice for us to hear that now so that we can start seeing whether or not there's something that they can do for y'all in advance. It may not directly tie to the milestones, it may not change the milestones, but if it's a scenario that you're thinking about, we'd love to hear about it. I am recognizing that we are at time. We have another question. I'm happy to stay for a second and chat through the questions. We will record it, put them in fax, but also knowing for those of you that need to hop off, please certainly do that. Next week is the financial management questionnaire. We'll walk through that. For those of you who are not your bookkeepers or not the person who is submitting information or knows about your accounting system, you may, for this one, want to invite your financial officer. So whoever that is, it could be your bookkeeper, your accountant, or your CFO. They are the ones who will, for the most part, be answering the questions within the financial management questionnaire. We'll walk you through it. For people who are deep into the finances, it's a relatively easy questionnaire to get completed. But I'm happy to stay on for another minute, recognize if people
And
need to hop off. So,
and I can stay on as well, Allie, just for a little bit.
okay. So Craig has a question. At what point in the process are provisionally awarded BEAD locations considered funded and updated in the FCC funding map for enforceable commitments? So that's a great question, Craig. I'll have to take that back. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. I would expect that it would be upon execution of the grant agreement. Typically, the the language that the feds have been using around enforceable commitments is an executed grant agreement or contract. That's the term, executed grant agreement or contract. But I don't know how that relates to the FCC's funding map and updates. That may not be the term that they use. So we'll take it back and take a look at it. Time frame on the NEPA. Oh, Brian
The
and David
last,
have same question about
yes,
NEPA.
the last
Yes.
two, yes.
Um, oh, sorry, were you gonna say something, Michael?
No,
Oh, so some of you may have seen we put out our intent to award for a NEPA consultant. It was either last week or the week before. We're finishing our contracting now, and we will have our NEPA consultant on board as soon as possible. We're really, really excited to get that moving, and they will be a resource both with you and for us. Um, and they'll do an office hour, probably multiple for you all around NEPA. So should have
Mhm.
some really great information for you coming. Um, is CBO working with counties to streamline the permitting process for BEADs? Yes. So I don't know if we can help with the 30-day permitting restrictions, but I love the idea of bringing that up. So we'll keep that in mind when we start talking to jurisdictions around permitting. But yes, NTIA has funded the state, the CBO and the state to be able to create some permitting initiatives to really hopefully make things a little bit easier for you all. So we will do our best. We want to hear from you for sure on what would be most helpful. Yeah. Well, it's a great point to maybe we um, can set aside some time in a future working session once we get through the items that you guys are going to need to be working on. Maybe we can have a conversation about that. So thanks for bringing it up. Any other final questions before we log off? Sorry about the extra 5 minutes, but really appreciate the engagement. Is NEPA something we have to submit? Okay, great question. Or something an engineer signs off on. So the way that NEPA will work is that you will engage a EHP consultant. So each ISP will engage an EHP consultant. They will look and do an initial review to see whether or not what your designs what kind of environmental or historic impact your network design and path may have. So your consultant will do the initial review. You will send it to the state of Colorado, and our consultants will take a look at it, figure out whether or not it meets the Fed's criterias. Our consultants will be working with you, your consultants, and really collaborating and doing technical assistance. To make any changes that need to be made either to the application packet or to the design, make potential design recommendations to avoid environmentally sensitive areas. And then you will send it to us and we will submit it to NTIA on your behalf. And so we'll submit it to NTIA on your behalf. They will review it and then they will come back and say, hopefully, you are good to go. In the event that the NTIA, I will say the NTIA, this is one of those places where NTIA has really done a ton of work. And I think it really is going to be helpful. They have created as many exclusions as they possibly can to make sure that these projects don't get held up in NEPA review in the way that they have in the past. And NTIA is saying that they anticipate that I think they're saying 80% of their NEPA applications should be reviewed and approved within 90 days. So, that who knows whether or not that's actually going to happen, but that'd be pretty incredible. So part of that is that they're pushing some of that work down to us and our NEPA, our EHP consultant to offer technical assistance to you all and to work with you so that we have plans that are really good and solid when we send them up the chain. So you could potentially have an EHP consultant prep your documents, have them ready to submit right after you can. That is
Yes.
correct. We would love that. That sounds great. I will say, let us get our EHP consultant on board. One of their first deliverables is going to be a guidance document that will let you know exactly what you need to do. The categorical exclusions and the Colorado specific considerations that relate to the projects that are being built here in Colorado. And so we should have that out for you as soon as we possibly can. And then that will, I think, be very helpful to the consultants that you all hire. So.
Yeah. I think one of the big things is the environment is changing so fast in this area of NEPA that knowing all the categorical exclusions
Really?
is very difficult. It's a timely process for these companies to keep up with all of the categorical exclusions that are being granted. And that's what we're hoping that with our contracted resources, they will help identify those for your companies that you hire to be able to utilize as many of those as possible.
Yes, Kate. Thank you. They did. NTIA put the webinar on permitting, and I've also found it to be incredibly helpful. Thank you so much for linking that, Kate.
Yeah. The only bad thing that these the permitting processes and all of the changes that have happened there, they don't account for federal shutdowns and restarts like we had recently. So, that has thrown a wrench into a few permits, especially on our CPF, because they laid off folks and they haven't hired back.
Michael, don't jinx us. David
Yeah.
said. Well, thanks, y'all. I am gonna, I think maybe wrap it up because we're at 10 minutes over. But thank you all for staying later. Really appreciate it, and hope you have a great day. We'll get the next round of facts up as soon as we possibly can, and we look forward to seeing you next week, and hopefully some of your financial officers to talk a little bit about that financial management questionnaire. It should be quick and easy, and something that you'll be able to complete and upload really quickly.
And definitely tune in for the fourth session because we may have some exciting news.
Cybersecurity.